Paul Conibeare, it must have been, 2 or so years ago since we last had a proper interview on the radio. Good to speak to you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Now, actually, before we start, what I want to say is that just driving in, got to the level crossing, little tank engine, not Thomas, which we'll be talking about later, was carrying just a couple of carriages. Is that for show, or is that actually serving a purpose?
No, it's just part of our preparations for what's going to be a very busy weekend for us.
Yeah. Tell us more.
Right, again, the West Somerset Railway is hosting our Day Out with Thomas event, which is going to be fantastic for all the children in the area of all ages, because obviously the grandparents enjoy it as much as the grandchildren do. So yeah, we've got our Day Out with Thomas weekend with the Fat Controller here with Thomas and his friends. So all centred around Minehead, being a very big station. Lots of fun, lots of activities, buses, vintage buses running around. Thomas will be here. We've brought in a little red engine from the Bluebell Railway. It's going to be a good weekend, and looks as though the weather's going to be with us as well. So what a great weekend for all the Thomas fans in the area. Come down and spend some time with us for our Day Out with Thomas event.
I have a 2-year-old nephew who saw a similar event in Cheltenham. They've got their own vintage railway up there, and the looks on his face was just amazing. The kids can't get enough.
Well, even our staff were getting excited earlier on in the week when the blue engine turned up on a lorry, because it's only a small engine, so it comes in on a lorry, not on the main line.
You mean Thomas, not the blue engine?
The Thomas.
Right,
Thomas
okay.
comes in. Thomas has arrived. He's up at Bishop's Lydeard and will be coming down later on today, ready to get cold and watered, ready for the weekend, because we keep Thomas at Minehead so that all the boys and girls can see Thomas and help taking water into the tanks and making sure there's no goldfish in the tanks and all those sort of stories that we sort of reenact as well. So yeah, it's good fun. It's very hard work for all our volunteers, because like a lot of organisations, we rely very heavily on voluntary support, so we're dragging everybody in to help out with what will be a busy weekend for Minehead. We'll probably see about 5,000 visitors over the 2 days. Again, that shows what a big impact the railway can have.
Am I right in saying Thomas the tank engine, being a tank engine, doesn't actually get to carry carriages? He just gets to shunt things around, or does he actually get to do carriages? What's the technical role of a tank engine?
Well, the tank engine, obviously being one of the really useful engines, will have some carriages, so all the boys and girls can travel behind him at Minehead station. So we have a couple of engines which will be around the shed, keeping an eye on the troublesome trucks and making sure those behave themselves and are in the right place. But Thomas will be hauling a couple of our old carriages so that all the boys and girls can have a little train ride in and out of the station. Because for a lot of our very younger visitors, they don't wish to go for a very long train ride. They go for a nice little train ride around the station behind Thomas.
Makes perfect sense. Now, in a way, steam engines are losing, in one sense, the heritage of those people old enough to remember them originally. But I kind of think that you're very lucky in the sense that it's still in the psyche of children. You look at Harry Potter, an essential part of that was the steam engine, and similarly with Thomas. Do you think without those, the steam engine would still have a longevity?
It's a difficult question, because we are getting a lot of volunteers now that have recently passed out as guards and firemen, and those firemen will become drivers in the future. But at 18, they've never seen mainline steam. So there's obviously a passion and an interest for seeing a railway like this operate with 200,000 visitors a year. So yes, Thomas does sort of sow the seeds for future generations to perhaps to come along and help out, the same as Harry Potter does.
Now, volunteers, you just dabbled with that just a few moments ago. How many volunteers do you have? Because it's such a big operation.
It is frightening when you consider that we've got over 1,000 volunteers. Now, not all of those come every day or every week. Some people might come on holiday and spend a week with us. Some people might do 2 or 3 days a week. A lot of people we know here have retired to West Somerset because it's a lovely place to live and work and volunteer on the railway. So yeah, we've got without the voluntary support, like a lot of our local organisations, we couldn't survive. So yes, we have got about 1,000 volunteers, and most of the staff that you see on the railway during the big events like Thomas, they are all volunteers. So they are supporting a business in Minehead and in West Somerset for the benefit of everyone to see and enjoy. But they are doing it as volunteers, and we shouldn't lose sight of that.
That must be quite a logistical nightmare to put them all in the right place at a certain time.
Yeah, there is quite a few roster clerks that are very good at juggling soot by having 3 people in the right place when you need them, not all at the wrong end of the line, because over this weekend there'll be 6 or 7 steam engines working. There'll be some diesel locomotives working. There'll be a number of guards. There'll be an awful lot of catering staff. There'll be an awful lot of shop staff. Again, all volunteers roster their services for the weekend. So, yeah, it is very good. The cost of fuel is having a big impact.
No, why's that?
Because a lot of our volunteers do live a long way away.
Of course,
Bath, Bristol, Cardiff. So that's why we're currently investing in quite a large new voluntary accommodation block at Minehead, which we're building, which it's not quite going to be the Minehead Hilton, but it will be a luxury cabin, which will make better accommodation for those that wish to spend 2 or 3 days in West Somerset rather than the cost of a hotel. Because obviously they could be retired or spending a lot of petrol getting to see us. So we are investing quite heavily at the moment in a new voluntary accommodation block rather than the old carriages that we've used. We're actually building a purpose-built block, so we're looking forward to getting that finished later on in the summer.
Cool. Now, a lot of people that listen to RadioMinehead.com don't actually live in the area and pop down for holidays. Just give us the basics. Set aside Thomas the Tank Engine weekend. How many engines do you normally have? Stations? How much track is there?
Well, we're quite lucky. We are one of the very longest heritage railways in the UK, over 20 miles through glorious Somerset countryside. We start at Bishop's Lydeard, just outside of Taunton, so it's easy to get to from the motorway for your Bristol Exeter travelling.
Right, looking forward to Thomas, but there's also other events coming up and around. There's the Summer Festival, the Red Arrows and whatnot. I think it's the 10th of August.
Yep.
You up to something then?
Wednesday the 10th of August, yeah. Everything with wheels on it will be operating on the West Somerset Railway. So it won't be quite Indian style with people travelling on the roofs. And we clearly Minehead did very well last year with 20,000 visitors on the seafront. It was fantastic for Minehead.
Yeah.
And our thanks to Butlins for organising last year's event and for this year's event. It's going to be more of an air show this year with the Battle of Britain flight coming in, Red Arrows coming in. The railway is very good at moving lots of people, so we will have some very large 10-coach trains at Bishop's Lydeard to run down at 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, whatever the
That makes perfect sense. The best park and ride possible. Yeah, really
exactly.
does.
And it's surprising, even last year, people were going back to Blue Anchor because the air show at Blue Anchor was just as good as the air show at Minehead, apparently. Yeah. So, yeah, we did very well. I mean, at 4 o'clock last year, we closed the station, and I've never done that as 5 years as general manager because we had that many people on the platform. Fantastic day. Yes, we will be gearing ourselves up to cope with probably 2,500, 3,000 people. Fantastic for Minehead, fantastic for the railway.
Would there be any chance of moving on to the main line? The deal is West Somerset Railway owns up to Bishop's Lydeard, but then there's the grey area between that and Taunton. What's the politics there?
It's more money now than politics. The West Somerset Railway runs 20 miles from Bishop's Lydeard to Minehead, as we've talked. Round the corner, we've got 3 miles of track, which doesn't see daily use, although we are recycling ballast on a big basis. At Norton Fitzwarren, there's a depot there. Ballast comes in by train. There's one come in this morning, and we recycle it and sell it for housing and in use. So we have a mainline connection. And during our diesel gala, beginning of June, we hired a train from First Great Western to run from Bristol to Taunton to Bishop's Lydeard. When are we running to Taunton is the most common question we'll ever get on the platforms. To relay a separate track into Taunton is about 5 million.
Right,
It's not a lot if you've won the lottery, but when you consider we had a very record year last year, we invested a lot of reinvestment back into the business with bridges, points, etc., and we only made a very tiny profit. Yeah. So to relay a separate track is out. First Great Western, if we can persuade First Great Western to extend a Cardiff, Taunton to Bishop's Lydeard service to cross across to your steam service to Minehead, that's the answer, and that's what we're currently working on.
I see. Get them to run to Bishop's Lydeard, for which you'd give full permission.
Absolutely.
Yes, and therefore that does make a lot of sense.
We have some wonderful steam engines, we have some wonderful old carriages, but we haven't got the modern gizmos, the modern kit to run into Taunton.
Great, well, Paul, thank you very much. Oh, before I go, Real Ale Festival, tell me it's on this year.
Definitely on. Oh yes, September the 10th and the 11th. Put that note in your diary. Clearly, we see a lot of regulars come down that may not.
You're looking at me.
That may not travel on the railway, but it's a good event. 100 barrels of beer, good atmosphere, never any trouble. The bouncers end up reading their papers because they're bored, they've got nothing to do. So it's a good atmosphere. Everybody brings a picnic chair down, sits there, soaks up the atmosphere, soaks up the beer. Never a lot left by the end of Sunday.
Paul, thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend, and look forward to seeing Thomas.
Thank you.